If you live next door to a farming operation in Queensland, it's really a bit of a hard luck story unless your neighbour is a really nice bloke. Because he's not legally required to tell you he's about to spray. He's not legally required to keep a spray log for most of the chemicals he uses. He's not legally required to tell you what he's about to spray. Is it a fertiliser, is it a pesticide? And he's not legally obliged to do anything about painting a buffer to stop spray moving off site. The regulator can't add any extra safety factor. The regulator said to me, I had a teleconference with them, and they said we simply can't add extra safety in just because we want to be safer. What we have to do is have a regulatory framework which we can defend in court. What that means is, if you try and be more safe, let's say we want to spray only 200 metres from waterways instead of only 100, if you haven't got a peer-reviewed scientific paper that says 200 metres is the right number, you can be taken to court by the chemical company and sued. The APV may get sued, loses, costs them money. So they can't be safe within the current regulatory framework. They're cornered. They have to try all sorts of mitigations before they can remove it. They're not able to act on the earliest science. They tell me they have to wait for consensus of reasonable scientists. I don't know what a reasonable scientist is, but I have concerns that maybe I'm not one of them. They rely on spray data that's over 20 years old. And they never go and check if their labels will work. So they make up an assessment, they go, we think this will be right. Here you go, you'll be right, farmer. Don't worry about you, your family. Use the stuff. I won't be able to check anytime soon, or ever. Now the Labor Party in the last election made a number of promises about reforming the regulator that had chemicals under review for 15 years. Chemicals that are removed in Europe, many of them. They said we want to make them more efficient. A good idea. They said we want to make it so they can use up-to-date research. Brilliant. They want to make it easier for them to start a review when they get worried. Super idea. They want to put the responsibility for safety back onto the chemical company who wants to get their product registered. To say every 3 years, if we learn a bit more, we're going to review your product. In Australia, there's no compulsory review. We've got products that are 30 years old, never been reviewed, ever. We're just trying to hope that they're safe, and they work real good. But this is not a good way to operate if you want to have an environment, if you want to have human health, if you want to have animal health. They've also said that if something's banned overseas, we really ought to look at it here. It really is a good, clear signal that there are rational people in Europe, they're not all lunatics. They decide to ban it for a reason, and we ought to think about it here. So there's 3 things I think you can do. 1 is call for the release of the final report of the task force. It's a public document, your taxes are paid for it. 2, you can commit to helping local farmers improve their practices. There's very simple things that can be done. You can help them plant buffers. When we buy their products, we don't pay them to look after the environment as well. We just say, grow us that as cheap as you can. I want to buy it as cheap as you can. I don't want to pay you to look after the river as well. But I think as a community, that's something to consider. And there's a need to write to the Minister, both the State and the Commonwealth Minister, and demand some ground-up reform of the regulator to bring them up to speed with at least the European standard. They're about 10 years ahead of us.
Hi mate, hey, come on.
Yeah, just about done. Thanks, mate. So, one thing that's interesting as a concept, I think, is creating a community trust fund. And that's a trust fund that can pay farmers to do things that as a community we think are a good idea. Would we like to go fishing and actually catch something? I like fishing, I like catching things, it seems like a good idea. So why don't we buy macadamias farmers offset mowers? Why don't we help them plant things under their orchard and stop all the sediment running off into the river? Have you noticed the river's a bit brown? It's sediment. Why don't we help the strawberry farmers put in a constructed wetland? We've got all the engineering, the laser leveling, the design. It's all in hand. We don't have to invent it. We just have to implement it for farmers to support them to keep growing their produce for us to eat. We're all in this together. Pay them to fence off strength sites. So if we want 20 metres of vegetation so that our riverbank can be healthy and it can filter all the stuff coming off the land before it goes into the river, we should be paying them for that. We've got the option to buy organic produce, so consumer choice can drive change. So here's the model I'd like you to kind of take away with you. So back in 1906, we could be sitting down there on the river, sitting on that bin, enjoying a few dozen oysters each and having a good old time. Unfortunately, here we are in 2010, everything's dead. The oysters are all dead. Go have a look at the river. This is the way I think we want to go. And it's achievable. It's totally achievable with small things that can be done in the catchment. And you can get all of this will bounce back. The oysters will come back, the fish will come back. These are resilient systems. But you've got to clean up the water. And that's how you do it. A range of people I'd like to thank have been of assistance along the way. And I'd like to take a few questions now.
Okay, we've got about 20 odd minutes for questions. Any questions, please? Yes, can you say the question, we'll repeat it. Is the onus always on the chemical company to prove that their product is safe?
The idea of safety is one that's currently lost in our regulatory system. The current onus on the chemical company is to meet the requirement. So do no more than the requirement, just meet the requirement. And the requirements at the moment do not require them to look at endocrine disruption. So does this chemical cause an impact on our hormones? That's not required in the data dossier. So they don't supply that information. They don't test it. If you go to try and apply for that permit in Europe, they do. But not here. So there's this differing standard between places, and we're dealing with compounds that are designed to kill things. An insecticide is designed to kill pests. Herbicides kill plants, fungicides kill fungus. These are highly toxic compounds. So safety is something that is where we need to go. It's not where we are. We need to move to the idea of being safe, being precautionary. We don't know everything, and I certainly don't profess to know everything. Far from it. But the things that I've seen, the things that I've learned through this investigation for the past 2 years, I've found thoroughly terrifying. And I wanted to give you as a community, I guess, an opportunity to pick up the ball on that and do something about it if you felt that it was important to you to have a viable river. So that's something that I hope might be able to come from today. And there's a bunch of handouts over there, and if you want to leave your contact details, we'll form an email list and circulate some other information for people. You might want to come back together at another time. Are there any other questions? And the state to reduce the impacts on the reef 40 kilometres offshore. There's actually none of that money. Washington State does this much research. So I've applied 3 or 4 research meetings in the past 18 months, and I've got a total of $0. So it's difficult.
What seems to be the main thing that's resistance to change in this area?
There's a core problem with funding. So the regulator would claim that it is poorly funded. What's worth bearing in mind is that 96% of the money that operates the regulator comes from chemical levies. So it's a self-regulated industry. The chemical companies pay for the regulation of their own chemicals through the regulatory process. It's a bit of a fox running the chicken coop kind of setup. Now, it's difficult to see how self-interest won't get in there somewhere. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I think there's probably better ways of organising it. So I think self-interest is one component. Resistance to change is hard. And I think it's a really difficult thing for farmers to switch from things that they feel they know work to things that they're not certain about. And I think that uncertainty is something that makes it difficult for people to make the change. There are very successful organic macadamia farmers using no agrochemicals, very successfully profitable. It's possible, it's technically possible, but the resistance to transferring is difficult. And that's where I think community support needs to be pushed to the farmers. Not to say it's all your responsibility. That's not going to work. We've got to support the farmers to be able to change their practices to things that are going to be safer for us, for them, safer for the river.
On what grounds was the FOI refused?
The FOI on the final report was refused on the basis that the Crown Law Advice felt that the release of the report would prejudice a court case which was underway between the macadamia farm and the fish hatchery and Channel 9. Earlier in the year, Channel 9 on 60 Minutes ran a program, and there's now a defamation case between Channel 9, the fish hatchery, and the macadamia farm, and there's a damages claim between the fish hatchery and the macadamia farm. What's important to realise is that no one is suing the government. They are not a party to the proceedings, and this is a scientific report. This is not an opinion piece. This is a work of peer-reviewed literature of scientists who are experts in their field. This is not prejudicial in a court. This is simply public information that's being withheld.